Good evening. In the journey of life, I hear their cries in the silence of the desert. I hear the sound of their tears falling from the dark clouds, covering my face entirely, becoming one with mine. I hear their prayers in the whisper of the wind, gently flowing through my hair. I hear their supplication coming from the mountains, standing tall about me. Let me tell you a story. There was a little girl, a Russian-born Assyrian, whose father was sent to a gulag camp. She and her mother were sent to Hamadan, Iran. Her mother, mastering the craft of embroidery, started to work in order to send her daughter to school. On an autumn day, the principal of the school came to her class and told everyone that there were a few American GIs, along with an American priest, who had come to visit the refugee children. The children, these kids, boys and girls, all dressed in their beautiful, clean clothes, lined up and stood harmoniously, ready to greet the Americans. Soon after, they came in. Very tall men in uniform, with the biggest smiles gracing their faces. They stood there waving at the kids ever so warmly. And then he came in, the priest dressed in his long black cassock. Our little girl, being so young and short, was placed in front of the line. Her beautiful light brown curls were shining in the sunlight. He scanned the children with the kindest eyes as he moved about them. And suddenly, his eyes met hers. He came to her and stood in silence, looking contemplative. He then asked her for her name. With her big brown eyes looking up at him, she cracked a shy smile and said, "My name is Atlantida." And then she looked down. He was so moved with our little girl that he immediately told the principal that he would pay for her entire education until her graduation from high school. After he had finished his conversation with the principal, he knelt, coming down to her level, caressed her little head, and out of his pocket he pulled out a shiny golden pen and gave it to her. He smiled and walked away, never giving her his name. We have been brought here together to mingle a little, to see friends we haven't seen in a while, or to forge new friendships. We have come here to enjoy a lovely dinner at a magnificent place. But why are we really here? We have chosen to be here because, like me, you also heard their cries in the silence. Like me, you also have heard their prayers in the whisper of the wind. Why was Assyrian Aid Society established? At first, it was founded to fill a void, but it became much more than that. In many cases, it became the sole lifeline for countless, whether it was to open irrigation channels for farming or to provide education to our children. Assyrian Aid became even more necessary. It answered a call to provide clean water and to give life-sustaining food. It saved lives by providing medical treatments to the sick. It responded quickly at a time of crisis like no other. Its reach is worldwide. An organization which was nominated for Nobel Peace Prize stands shoulder to shoulder with those who are in need. Assyrian Aid Society of Iraq was nominated for Nobel Peace Prize. Iraqi Christian Relief Council was created to connect the world with all the Iraqi Assyrians without discrimination, considering whatever name they choose to call themselves. It has been over 12 years that we have traveled the world to do just that, to educate the world about the suffering and yet the resilient Assyrians of Iraq. Americans, Canadians, Brits, Spaniards, Jews, and people of the Philippines came along our side. They supported us. Then it was time to find trusted partners to start our work on the ground in Iraq. We didn't have to search for long because we knew already the very organization that did the real work on the ground. From the very beginning, the bond we formed with the Assyrian Aid Society was deep. After all, our mission was the same, to meet our people's needs, no matter at what cost. In the spring of 2015, one of my American associates, whom I had funded to travel to Iraq to take pictures of the conditions on the ground, called me in the middle of the night. He sounded fatigued and broken. He described what he had seen there. He told me many stories that I will never forget. But there was one statement that struck me and stayed with me till this day. And I quote, "I don't know how Assyrian Aid Society does this, but they turn $1 into 5. They are the ones who are doing much of the heavy lifting." From providing tents to those escaping Mosul in October of 2008, to digging wells for clean water in the devastated Nineveh Plain in November of 2019, year after year, we together have impacted hundreds of thousands of people. 2021 marks 30 years that the Assyrian Aid Society and its sister organization, Assyrian Aid Society of Iraq, have been serving those in need in our homeland and beyond, changing lives not just on a momentary basis, but with lasting impact, which is felt years later. Assyrian Aid Society, Iraqi Christian Relief Council, and others exist because of people like you. I look around tonight. Take a moment and look around yourselves. The room is filled with Assyrians who year after year have understood the need of their brethren and have met those needs. And for that, we're grateful. However, I also see my fellow Americans who do not share the Assyrian blood, who do not share the Assyrian heritage, and yet you have decided to be here. You remind me of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony and Schiller's poem, Ode to Joy, mankind's hymn for brotherhood. As it says, all men become brothers. I would like to extend our most sincere and heartfelt gratitude for you have gone above and beyond and have become one with us. We salute you and pray for you to be richly blessed beyond your expectation. But where does this desire to give come from? Where does it come from? Each one of you come here with your own stories, which impact your giving. You give because you believe in this mission. You give because you want to do something real special. You give because you desire to make a real difference. Giving to those who will never be able to give back to you or repay you is love in action. I'm a humanitarian. This is a true statement. More than that, though, I'm an Assyrian, a follower of Jesus of Nazareth. My nationality and my faith are sacred and inseparable. Given my utter devotion to the Assyrian cause, however, I would like to speak with you about our current reality. We are living in the diaspora, in countries that have given us incredible opportunities. Many of us have gone on and have become extremely successful, leading, fulfilling lives. For this, we're all grateful. Among us, however, some have forgotten the cause of Assyria. They have forgotten the cause of Assyria for self, and others have forgotten self for the cause of Assyria. Permit me to ask you a question. Do you think we live free lives? Do you really think we're free? In theory, we are, correct? According to the Jewish faith, no one is free until we're all free. Are we really free if our Assyrian brother has sunken into depression and has turned to alcohol to heal immense pain for the loss he has experienced in Iraq, now living away from his home as an asylum seeker in Lebanon? Are our children really free when their peers live as mere refugees, not having access to basic education, a situation which has plagued the new generation since 2014? Or our parents living free lives in this country when their brothers, their sisters, their cousins suffer from heart attack, suffer from diabetes, and die of cancer without having access to basic medication? No, my friends, no. I am not free until every single Assyrian has a chance to live a dignified life. I am not free until every Assyrian has a chance to live a dignified life. After all, Shirshan, our roots are intertwined. Whether we like it or not, we are one. When they suffer, we must suffer with them. David Perley, the famous 20th century thought leader, said, "I am an Assyrian, and as an Assyrian, I'm obligated to be actually interested in the destiny of the Assyrians, once the greatest nation, now almost forgotten. I would be an arch criminal if I failed to assume this obligation." So what is it that binds us Assyrians together? Is it our history, our struggle, our triumph, our activism or lack thereof, the tears we shed or the laughter we share, our passionate debates, and please permit me to say, the way we insult one another? Yes, I had to remind us of those shameful exchanges. Is it our collective and generational trauma? Our desire not just to survive, but to thrive? Is it our past, our present, our future? My brother, my sister, it is all of it. You are my brother, and I am your sister. We are family. We're members of the same clan, and we must care for each other as such. Our ancestors were storytellers. They etched them on clay, wrote them on parchments, typed it on a typewriter, passed it on verbally. They did so we will never forget. And now we must tell our story to the world. Telling our story leads us to be free, but leads us to be free together. We not only have to pass the stories of struggle and oppression and tyranny, but we also must tell the stories of courage and resilience. We're not just victims, we are a resilient nation. We must speak of the soldiers and activists who have fought and died for our cause. Let us not forget them. We must tell the stories of heroes like Ashur, Imad, and William, who become one with those in need. We must speak of the nuns like Sister Ibtihaj, Sister Huda, who supervise and work at a school in Baghdad selflessly and console all those children whose mothers have passed away of cancer, an illness which is now rampant among victims of ISIS. We must uplift the courageous principles like Din Khazaya or women like Bahija, who teaches children or serves women in need. Yes, my friends, these are the real people that ICRC and Assyrian Aid Society serves every single day. I must say, through my travels among our people in the Middle East, I see that it is the woman who keeps the family together. Tomorrow is International Women's Day, and as an Assyrian woman, and as an Assyrian woman, I would like to uplift every single Assyrian woman from generation to generation who has suffered, sacrificed, and has courageously kept her family intact, regardless of what trials she has faced. May I ask the women in the room to stand? Please stand. All women, please stand. This is in your honor. And tonight, I'm grateful to be among you, to speak of joys and sorrows, of courage and fatigue, of accomplishments and setbacks, but above all, of a selfless love, a love like no other, the love that we have for Bnuna Bnat Atur. Watching victims rebuild their lives, one step at a time, one brick at a time, is much like watching a composer weave musical notes together ever so eloquently to create a beautiful masterpiece. And when you come alongside the Assyrian Aid Society, you impact countless of lives. And in turn, these people lift you up in their prayers. As Ibn al-Qayyim, a medieval Islamic theologian, once wrote, perhaps you may be sleeping while the doors of heaven are knocking with tens and thousands of supplications for you by a poor person you aided, or a sad person you made happy, or a distressed person you brought relief to. Therefore, do not underestimate doing good at all. Remember the story of our little girl and her mom? That little girl is my mother, who grew up loving the American people. Till this day, she tells me that the American people are the most generous people on the face of this earth, and she's right. Her mother, my grandmother, Sarah, is the woman who embroidered the very first modern-day Assyrian flag per request of George Bidatanus. Thank you. And 80 years ago, that American priest in that small Assyrian school in the city of Hamadan in Iran impacted the lives of hundreds of thousands of Assyrians in Iraq today. How and why? Because he believed in investing in my mother and in her future, and in turn, she prepared me for a life of service. You may never get a chance to see the children you help, and they may never know your name, just like my mother never knew the priest's name. But I promise you, you tonight, on this very evening, are able to chart their course for the rest of their lives. You may never know how the child you help will grow up to make the world a more beautiful place. God said in Ezekiel 31:3-9, "Consider Assyria, I made it beautiful." Yes, he made her beautiful, but he has entrusted her to us. Who is Assyria? Who is Assyria after all? She is you. She is me. She's that child in school studying in Nala. She's that mother who's wanting to cook a good meal for her children, but she can't because she's a refugee and she doesn't have money. She's that father who's withering away. She's that soldier who's protecting Baghdad in the Nineveh plain. She's that priest who, amidst his own profound sadness, reaches deep inside, rises and serves the refugees in Turkey, Father Adey Ramzi Diril. Assyria is Lawrence, a displaced man himself who serves his fellow asylum seekers in Amman, Jordan. Assyria is all of us. And that is what binds us together, my brothers and sisters. Assyria is what keeps us together. She is that golden thread that keeps us together. He, our Lord God, has entrusted Assyria to us. Will we not keep her beautiful? Avitun Basime, thank you.
Thank you so much. If you could please stay with us here. There is a gift ordered and brought from Atra to be honored to Juliana. I would like to invite Dr. Varani here to honor this gift to her, please.
Oh my goodness, that's beautiful. And I don't have one. أبي رابا باسيمة قدر رابا دقرانة دشنا. So when I go to Iraq, I always come back with this beauty. But I've never brought one for myself. I've always brought one for my siblings, my cousins, and here I have one now. Thank you. I'm honored to serve along with you. Thank you, and God bless you.